very happy to be here tonight to present a special Oscar to a man I've long loved and admired, King Vidor. He started directing movies in 1919, and by the time the sound era arrived, he was already considered one of Hollywood's top filmmakers. King Vidor has covered the whole spectrum of movie making. Ladies and gentlemen, King Vidor.
Galveston, take 2.
Galveston hurricane took place in September the 8th, I'll never forget the date, 1900.
Welcome to Galveston Unscripted. Thank you to our video sponsor, The Daily News, bringing you the news since 1842, Texas' oldest newspaper. Support your local newspaper, The Daily News. In this episode, we're going to take a look at King Vidor, a movie producer and director with a 67-year career. Between 1913 and 1980, Vidor is credited with producing or directing over 65 movies. He even went on to direct scenes in iconic movies that we know where he went uncredited. King Vidor's grandfather fled Hungary during the 1848 Hungarian Revolution and settled here in Galveston in the 1850s, where King's father, Charles Shelton Vidor, went on to become an entrepreneur here on the island and in East Texas. King's father owned a multitude of businesses, including a lumber business in Southeast Texas. The city of Vidor, Texas, was actually named after King Vidor's father. Now, the pronunciation gets a little confusing, but King Vidor always pronounced his last name Vidor, not Vidor. But either way, that lumbering community was named after King Vidor's father. King was born in Galveston in 1894 and grew up here during Galveston's economic heyday of the late 1890s. The home that King Vidor grew up in is still standing at 17th and Winnie in the East End Historic District. And the clips from the interview we're going to look at today are available on the Texas Archive of Moving Image website, which I will link in the description of this video. Be sure to check out the entire video on the Texas Archive of Moving Image website. In this interview conducted in 1976, King describes his experience and others while surviving the 1900 storm, the nation's deadliest natural disaster. On the morning of September 8, 1900, King and his mother walked down to the beach to check out the rising surf. Here is how he describes the scene.
We went to the beach and watched the waves, and the waves, there was a car trestle, and the waves were coming over the car trestle, and the cars had to stop running, the street cars, and it started to rain. Well, we had some friends within about 2 or 3 blocks of the ocean, and we took refuge in their house, and it was a big home. We could see the water coming in under the doors, under the kitchen doors. The water was then beginning to come in. It was heavy rains, but the seawater was coming over the town. One of the girls of that household, she and I sat on the steps and moved up the steps and watched the furniture in the lower floor begin to float. And finally, as the day went on and toward late afternoon and nightfall, everything on the first floor was floating and bumping against the ceiling of the first floor. Of course, by then the winds were about 100 miles or more, 100 miles, 110, 20 miles an hour. It was just a howling shriek.
King describes this experience as affecting and influencing his life and movie making throughout his career.
Friends, neighbors, family, relatives, so forth, about 20, 30 in one room, and then in another room where all the people had pulled out, mostly blacks, pulled out of the water and in through the windows. And the house was disintegrating. The roof would disappear, and then the walls, and the people in the house would run into the still remaining rooms. But the house blew away. It was a big home, rambling sort of home. Blew away all except 2 rooms, with about 40 blacks in one and 30 white and refugees and families in another. They even had segregation under those conditions. And the people praying, and the black people singing, and singing spirituals and hymns, never left me and influenced me throughout my life. And is a memory that I never could forget, because it's facing death about as close as you can face it.
After the 1900 storm, through Vidor's teenage years, his family stayed in Galveston, where Vidor experienced firsthand the grade raising and the building of the seawall. He began working on the island at small theaters, working as a ticket taker or projectionist, where he really fell in love with film. While just a teenager in the early 1900s, Vidor began delving into photography and videography, filming documentary-style projects. He even successfully sold some of these films, which apparently have not been digitized because I cannot find them anywhere. In 1915, Vidor moved out to California to blaze his own trail in the emerging Hollywood movie industry. And over the next 6 decades, Vidor produced and directed dozens and dozens of films. Starting off with silent movies and then moving into talkies, these films were iconic for the time. King Vidor went on to direct Hallelujah in 1929, the first all-black musical film depicting the lives of poor African Americans in the South. However, one of the most famous films that Vidor had a hand in is probably one you have seen, although Vidor went uncredited. This is one of the most iconic scenes in film. Vidor was the perfect man to direct this scene, and the scene I'm referring to is the storm scene in The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy's home is swept up by a tornado. Vidor was always pretty outspoken about his experience during the 1900 storm, and based on his experience, he was selected to direct this scene specifically because he knew what it would sound and feel like during a storm such as the one we see in the movie, with the intense wind, the clattering of debris on the outside walls, and the chilling silence after the storm. King Vidor, Galvestonian, 1900 storm survivor, and one of the most prolific and influential directors and producers of the 20th century.
Ladies and gentlemen, King Vidor.